What would you do if your entire neighborhood got wiped out by a hurricane, except your house? And instead of people congratulating you, they accused you of somehow causing the storm. That's exactly what happened to me. And let me tell you, I never thought surviving a natural disaster could make me the most hated man on my street. It was the morning after Hurricane Lila ripped through Clearwater Bay. The place looked like a battlefield, roofs peeled open like tin cans, trees snapped in half and scattered like matchsticks, power lines drooping across driveways. Families wandered barefoot, carrying plastic tubs with whatever they could salvage, just trying to keep their kids from stepping on nails. And then there was my house, still standing at the end of Seabreeze Court, shutters bolted down, foundation strong, barely a shingle out of place. I didn't feel proud. I felt exhausted. Weeks of skipped dinners, weekends spent pouring concrete instead of grilling burgers, nights up on the ladder with a flashlight sealing every seam. I didn't win the lottery. I just worked my tail off. But as I stood on my porch that morning, I noticed something: the looks. Not relief, not gratitude. Suspicion. Resentment. Almost like I had cheated. My wife Lisa peeked through the blinds and whispered, "They're staring at us like we did something wrong." I sighed, telling her, "Let them stare. We did what we had to do to protect ourselves." I believed it then. I had no idea how far those whispers would go. By the end of the week, I was no longer just a neighbor with an intact house. I was the villain. The HOA president, this woman named Cheryl Aldrich, picture a navy blazer, hair sprayed solid, always carrying herself like she's in front of a jury, stood up at an emergency meeting. Half the community center's roof was caved in, but Cheryl still looked like she was ready to sell a closing argument. She said, "Every home on this street was destroyed except one. Does anyone find that strange?" A few nods. Murmurs. My stomach dropped. Then she hit me with it. My so-called modifications had disrupted natural wind patterns, redirecting the storm, and magnifying damage to everyone else. And for that, she said, I owed the neighborhood $10 million. I shot out of my chair, nearly knocking it over. "Are you kidding me? You're blaming me for a hurricane." Cheryl didn't blink. She just smiled that tight smile of hers and said, "We're not blaming you for nature. We're blaming you for manipulating it to your benefit. And this community demands accountability." The word accountability echoed through the hall. Some people clapped, some just stared at their shoes, and me? I realized right there I wasn't just fighting rumors. I was about to be dragged into a full-blown war. Within days, the HOA had served me with official papers, $10 million in damages. Legal language saying my upgrades created unnatural wind tunnels. I laughed when I read it, but it wasn't a real laugh. More like the bitter sound you make when you feel your whole life tilting sideways. Lisa's face went pale. "This isn't gossip anymore, Tom. This is legal." And she was right. Neighbors I used to shovel driveways for now knocked on my door just to glare. Caroline from down the block showed up with her little boy, tears in her eyes. "My son's bedroom is gone," she snapped. "And your house looks brand new. You should pay for what you did." I told her, "Caroline, I didn't do anything but work. If you're angry, be angry at the storm, not me." She pulled her son close and said, "No, Cheryl's right. You manipulated things. That's not fair." And she walked away like I was poison. The whispers turned into news trucks. One morning I'm dragging plywood out of my truck, and a Channel 7 van pulls up. "Mr. Dawson, do you have a response to the lawsuit? Did your home's design cause the destruction?" I dropped the wood and snapped. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I built strong, that's it. I'm not some weather wizard." But by that night my face was plastered across the screen under a headline. Did one man's home cause his neighbor's destruction? Lisa nearly threw the remote. "They're making you sound guilty before you even finish your sentence." That's when I realized Cheryl wasn't just after money. She was after control. She had turned survival into a crime, and the cameras were eating it up. But here's where it gets interesting. My buddy Mark, one of the few still speaking to me, introduced me to a lawyer named Daniela Ruiz. Sharp woman, no nonsense. She spread the HOA's letter across my table and said, "This is nonsense dressed up as science. Hurricanes don't care about your shutters. But if you don't fight, they'll drown you in paperwork." I asked if she thought I stood a chance. She smirked. "I don't think. I know." Together we dug into the HOA's files. Mark even slipped me a thumb drive from a board member sick of Cheryl's games. And buried in those emails, we found gold. Cheryl writing weeks before the storm, warning the board that if my house survived it would make the rest of us look unprepared. Not worried about safety, not worried about fairness, just optics. And then Daniela pointed out financial records. Tens of thousands of HOA dollars funneled into consulting fees to Cheryl's cousin. Money that should have gone to rebuilding roofs, paying for debris removal, helping families. My blood boiled. She wasn't protecting the community. She was bleeding it dry. So when the city council finally called a public hearing, I walked in with Daniela on one side, Lisa on the other, and every nerve in my body on fire. The chamber was packed. Neighbors, reporters, people from across town who just wanted to see a showdown. Cheryl sat up front, pearls gleaming, lips curled into that faint smile. She looked like a senator ready to declare victory. She went first, of course. Her voice filled the room as she declared my house had altered the storm's path, and that I owed the community compensation. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I leaned toward Daniela and muttered, "She makes it sound like I conjured a tornado." Daniela whispered back, "Let her talk. We'll shred this." When it was our turn, Daniela stood and held up Cheryl's email for everyone to see. "This isn't about safety," she said. "This is about envy." 2 weeks before the storm, the HOA president wrote, and I quote, "If Dawson's home withstands a storm, it will make the rest of us look unprepared." Gasps shot through the chamber. Then she dropped the bomb about the consulting fees. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras zoomed in. For the first time, Cheryl's composure cracked. Then it was my turn. I gripped the mic, palms sweaty, heart pounding. I told them the truth. How I skipped vacations, missed weekends with my kids, poured every spare dime into reinforcing my house. I didn't cheat anyone, I said. I didn't redirect a hurricane. I just worked. And now I'm being punished for protecting my family. That's not fairness. That's scapegoating. The room went silent for a beat. Then my buddy Mark stood and called out, "Enough. Tom didn't cause the storm. The hurricane did. Stop making him the villain." Half the crowd erupted in applause, the other half in angry shouts. Cheryl pounded the table, yelling about accountability, but it was too late. The tide had turned. The council recessed, and when they came back, Judge Jennings read the verdict. No legal basis for the HOA's claims. My renovations were legal. The idea that I altered a hurricane? Without merit. And then, this was the sweet part, they ordered a full audit of the HOA's finances. Cheryl sat frozen, pale, her papers trembling. For the first time, she looked small. I didn't feel like gloating. I just felt relief. I stood and told the room, I never wanted this fight. All I wanted was to keep my family safe. I didn't cause the storm, and I didn't cause your pain. But blaming me wasn't the answer. Preparing for the future, that's the answer. Some people clapped. Some didn't. But the truth was out. Cheryl resigned within weeks. The audit uncovered all her shady spending, and life in Clearwater Bay slowly limped back to normal. Not perfect. Friendships had cracked. Trust was broken. My daughter still got whispers at school. But we survived, not just the hurricane, but something uglier, the hunger for a scapegoat. And here's the lesson I'll never forget. Storms don't just test our houses. They test our character. When envy and anger come knocking, sometimes standing your ground is the only thing that keeps you upright. So now I've got to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have fought like I did? Or just paid them off to make it go away? Was Cheryl right to call it fairness? Or was it pure envy dressed up as justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if this story hit you like it hit me living through it, share it with someone who needs the reminder. Preparation isn't a crime, and truth is worth holding on to, even when the world wants a villain.